very nice coincidence to speak about Oscar Hansen in the context of this exhibition, because it also, my talk will be also about unrealized ideas, although the work entails to introduce them in practice, but we will still be on this level of possibilities, hypotheses, and trials to build the world in another way. So the exhibition, as you probably saw it already, is mostly about the field of cinema and cinematography, and I will switch to architecture, which is not that far, and we will see some examples that will be very close to what you can see in the exhibition space. So I will speak about Oscar Hansen, who was a Norwegian-born architect, active mostly in Poland, mostly in 50s, 60s, 70s, and also 80s. He passed away in 2005, so it's still quite recent. But he was mostly known for his idea, his theory of open form, that became one of the topics that the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, where I and Tomek we are both working, the museum started a whole research and exhibition project around this idea and around the work of Oscar Hansen. And we had a touring exhibition that was shown in Barcelona, in Porto, and in the US. And if you happen to be in Warsaw next year, in September and October, we'll have the final show showing the results of our research project. But today I will just try to present you what his work was about, and I will use the word Utopia, but just to, it's important to say that at the very beginning, it's not the word that Oscar Hansen would use himself, because he was very strict about it, that his ideas, like the ideas that we see on this exhibition, are possible to realize here and now. And this here and now was in socialist Poland, and this context is also very important. I will start with the project that was like the greatest example of his utopian thinking. So the linear continuous system that we can see here, that was the realization of his dreams of how a socialist society should be formed and should live, and how this society should inhabit space. So it was really a utopia of the present, and it's a quote from a book about Hansen's friends from think tank groups or architects at the same time, that they all worked with hypotheses, with possibilities, but they tried to translate them immediately to what can be built in real context. So Hansen worked on this concept since mid-1960s, in the time where some futurological thinking about Poland was developing, about also other socialist countries, and there was, for example, a committee called Poland 2000 that worked mostly in the 1970s, and its main occupation was to imagine how Poland should look like in 30 years from then. And Hansen's answer was to build linear cities that would stretch from throughout whole Poland, from the Tatra Mountains to the Baltic Sea. Linear cities that we can observe in many utopian projects. So if you look into any book about the history of architecture, you will see projects by Arturo Soler-Mata from Spain, from early 20th century, or Nikolai Minutin from USSR, or Le Corbusier, so the same time. But what was specific for Hansen's idea was that he really employed this, really referred to the context, to the social political context he try to realize this utopian settlement in. So what he planned were 4 belts that would have both residential functions and transport and all necessary functions connecting both what is valuable in the city and in the countryside, and would give also this idea of the scale. So someone inhabiting those linear settlements in any place would feel the connection with the whole landscape of Poland. And this organic thinking was somehow the roots of this idea. And here you can see this was like more technical drawing, and those are the beginnings of how Hansen imagined this linear continuous system. When he started to draw it for himself, it was not something that he publicly showed. He tried to stick to this very technical side to underline that this concept is very easy to realize, and it's possible to realize, and it's not utopia at all, it's something realistic. But for himself, he made those very poetic drawings showing this organic elements that how this linear cities would grow out from the landscape, like here, like on the one on the bottom that refers to moraines, so those sand hills that are close to the sea, or in very abstract forms that also have this value of organic thinking. But he translated it into this very technical part. So as I told, this connection with the landscape, like it was literally like from the roots, but also as you can see here, those lines were also going very close to the rivers, so it was really connected with the landscape. And the idea was also that someone living on those linear settlements would feel the connection with the whole area of Poland. So what was the result? The result was, and it was also only a concept, so you can see here images of the models that it was never realized. The idea was that Hansen and his team would give those linear settlements a structure, some objective infrastructure, objective frame, on which every inhabitant could find his place, could choose his place, and could build his or her own house as they wanted. Could also be a part of the structure, but also feel very individual. So he tried to connect in this mass scale project very objective elements and very subjective elements. So give this frame in which everyone could express themselves. And this is something that was also very valuable for this utopian project. As I told you, it was never realized as such, although Hansen underlined very much that it is possible to be realized. Within this utopian thinking, there were some strategies or elements that he translated in other projects. So he made this utopia real in other sense. So he translated those ideas that he tried to introduce in this bigger scale in transforming the whole way how how the society of socialist Poland lives into some smaller strategies that he introduced in other scale of design, and both in his artistic practice, architectural practice, and also teaching practice, where he taught, because he taught at the Academy of Fine years. So we are coming from this mass scale, from this utopia, from this idea of how to transform the whole way the socialist country is built, into some smaller strategies that make this utopia present, make this utopia real, and can be inspiring also today for contemporary architectural discussions. This is only to underline, this is a page from Oscar Hansen's catalog from the trial in 1960s, something that came out in debates about this his utopian project, that he wasn't imposing everyone one way of living. Yes, this is something that when we see this project for the first time and do not go into details, we can have this impression that Hansen somehow introduced one way of how everyone should be. And this is also very much connected with this very superficial thinking about socialist, state socialist countries. But what Hansen tried to do was to provide this infrastructure, to provide this objective frame, but also don't forget about individuality. So it was very poster-like form, he underlined that. But he underlined very much the importance of the individual, of subjectivity, of expressing oneself. And this was a detail of his project that was actually the most important, that within this infrastructure that he provided within his utopian project, there was place for individual expression. And here we come to the main idea of Oscar Hansen that he became known for, which is the open form, the theory of open form that became the conceptual basis for all his practice. A theory that is also underneath this utopian idea of the linear continuous system, but also underneath his every activity. A theory that was formulated in 1959, and it's all Hansen advocated for. You can see here on this scheme that he also presents on the blackboard here what he's for, what he's against. Yes, so closed form, it's the architecture that is present in his times, that is dominant, operates in a very patriarchal society, gives very strict answers, leaves no place for individual expression, and makes all the architect almost so the architecture is almost like a monument for the architect. So this is something that he found around him, and what he wanted to do instead was the open form, and this was like this his idea of how to transform the present. This is we are talking about utopia, but we are still very much rooted in the now. So he wanted instead to propose instead something that was more flexible, something that would accommodate in the process of design every human being, also interdeterminate forms that would give multiple answers and multiple possibilities. Yes? So it was also visible in this utopian project that we saw, yes, in this linear system. But there was we could see it as a like this frame, yes, as a closed form. But within the terraces, within the structure that Hansen provided, there was a lot of place for individual expression and a huge margin for the participation of the users. And as I told you, he even about this utopian project, he thought that it is possible to be realized, but it wasn't possible because of the reality, yes, that didn't have, it was really discussed within the committee Poland 2000 as a possible development plan of Poland, and it was realized in like small forms, and I will show you in a while some examples. But it was never introduced as such, although Hansen stated that it was possible as a utopia, but also that it's possible only in this context of the socialist society that has centralized planning, a central economy, and so on and so on. But he developed certain strategies or certain practices that translated those ideas behind the reform and those ideas behind the continuous system into smaller scales to test how they would fit into reality and test how they would function. So he tried first with the scale of housing estates or flats, where he, together with his wife Zofia, built flats that also provided this general infrastructure, so the building frame, but also provided every inhabitant with the possibility to shape their own interiors or to choose different flats from American ones, and also underlined on the facade of the buildings with different colors certain places within the building, so everyone could see or could identify themselves with the place. And here you can see a wonderful graphic by that briefly summarizes this idea that every human being is like a different bear and has different needs and also needs different architectural frame for living. Here you have another example from Southeast Poland, from Lubin, where in a form that was very close to this linear form of linear continuous system, Hansen tried to give inhabitants even more freedom. So he gave this objective architectural frame, but within this general structure, he gave every inhabitant the possibility to design their own flats. So before building, they were given surveys in which they could describe and draw how they want their flats to be. The problem was that because of the socialist building industry that you will probably know very well as well, the flats were then distributed randomly, so people who designed their own flats later didn't get them. So this experiment didn't work, but it was also a trial to design a strategy to open up this process of designing for some experiment and to translate those unrealized ideas into present. And just one example from very far, he also, together with Sven Hartwig, designed an estate or a proposal for a housing estate in Bremen, in Lima, in Peru, and where the whole concept of linear continuous system was translated into different social and cultural contexts. So instead of rivers that were in the case of Poland, where the rivers were those forms that determined the form of linear cities, here everything was determined by the shape or by the directions of the wind. That is the most significant element of Peruvian landscape or nature. And the houses were designed in that way that some empty spaces were given, so people were given like this basic frame, and then some of the walls they had to construct by themselves. And you can see here a house that was like those white parts were built, and the bricks were added by the inhabitants, and they were given also some other materials like textile, straw, wood, in order to extend their houses in the way they wanted. This was the concept. There were only 6 houses realized within this housing estate, and it was also a bigger competition and bigger architectural project where other architects also designed some samples of the buildings that were constructed, all with this idea of participation of the users. The funny thing was that those houses were later transformed in that way that now architectural critics and historians are arguing that it's too much, so we cannot see the original authors anymore, which for me means that the experiment was successful. But yes, so they were really transformed by the inhabitants in a very significant way. So this is one of the strategies, how those utopian concepts that were not possible to be realized because of the context were transformed into some strategies, yes, so some ways of making this utopia functioning. The other way of introducing open forum was to think of it of architecture as a background, and Hansen used the example of exhibition pavilions as some kind of testing ground for this idea, trying to experiment with different backgrounds to create some kind of scenography that would not only house or not only accommodate people or exhibit in this way, in this example, but also that would somehow make them more visible, yes, so they would expose them in a way. So exhibition pavilions were one of those examples, but he didn't only want to underline everyday events, underline what is already in the space, and to transform this architecture in this way that would somehow expose the richness of everyday life, but also wanted to create spaces that would encourage people to be more creative. So this architectural frame that would provide would not only be this support structure that would give people place, but would also encourage them to be more expressive, to use this possibility of participating in architecture, of create their own space, of transforming their own space. So for that he designed another tool that was called Active Negative, and it was a sculpture that shows the interiors. So what we can see here is his plan and cross-section of his own apartment that shows this space that is inside. Yes, that this whole sculpture is somehow is like a negative of the space, but it's not a literal one. But it shows how we feel the space, or how we experience the space. So when there's a window, it opens up. So it was also a tool he used to translate his idea of making architecture more open for people's participation into reality. And this is his own apartment he designed according to this concept. But another strategy that may be the most interesting in the context of the exhibition you see here is thinking about architecture as a tool. And there is one example that exists, that was also realized. It's the Polish Ring Experimental Studio that was realized by Hansen in the 1960s, but functions in Warsaw until the 1980s. And it was a space that was literally an instrument. So it was built and designed in a way that every part of this space could be used, transformed, changed, and the music engineer who was there could benefit from that and could use the space, could transform the space, could somehow play on the space as if it was an instrument itself. So it translated this new experience of composing electronic music into an experience that musicians had before of playing like real instruments, but they could play the space. And this is how it looked like. Yes, and you can see also the panels that were on this photo below. There were acoustic panels that could be moved. So this whole space, literally every element of it could be played and used, and also supported this idea of involving user in the process of design. And this process of design didn't end in the moment of giving the building to the users, but continued also later. And this was the strategy of thinking about architecture as a tool was then transformed into bigger scales. And what you can see here was never realized, but it's a project for the Museum of Modern Art in Skopje. It was built after an earthquake in 1963. There was a competition in Poland. Hansen took part in that, proposing a project that would be also a space that could be used as a tool, a space that would reply to the question of how to design a space for exhibiting art that would develop in some unknown direction. So what he proposed was building a temporary exhibition space that would be composed of umbrella-shaped elements that would open up or close down according to the needs of the users. So the user could also use this space as a kind of a tool and decide how they want to play this architecture, how they want to develop this architecture and influence its shape. Also, much later than the process of building this, of finishing this building was done. And here, last example of this strategy of using the space or architecture as a tool is a studio theater in Warsaw, also never realized project that employed the whole space of the theater with different tools, also to play, also make it possible for the users to play the whole space and to change the functions and to transform it according to their needs. So those strategies that I presented, so just summing up, such as thinking of architecture as a background, but also thinking of it as a tool that could be used, and of designing a way to accommodate the process. As you saw, they were mostly applied to projects that were either rather temporal, as abundance, as I showed, where there were interiors like Kędziorek experimental studio, individual apartments, or such bigger projects like this theater or museum that were just left on papers, were never realized. But there was one project that Hansen finished and made real, and this is the place where this Utopia somehow in a very small scale reached the reality. It's his summer house in Szumi that is now under custody of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw. And it was a place where all those strategies that he first developed on this biggest scale that I showed you at the beginning, on the scale of the linear continuous system, and then try to translate into some strategies and somehow employ into the design of housing estates, public buildings, temporary pavilions, and small projects. Then he all summed it up in his individual summer house. It was some kind of refugium for him, like asylum, but also sometimes made from second-hand materials, and it really shows this all those utopian ideas that he had at the very beginning. Also, this idea to form architectural frame that would later develop according to the user's needs. You can see here a scheme that made on the basis of our survey on the house, how it started and how it grew up in time, and became also the place where all the strategies I presented somehow took place in miniature. Yes, so he didn't manage to make this large-scale experiment he wanted, but at least this one building shows the samples or some basic ideas in micro scale, and summarizes his idea, making his whole house a kind of manifesto. And I encourage you to, if you happen to be in Poland, to visit this. It is now under custody of our museum and it's open to the public, so you can visit. We also use the space as a kind of micro-utopia, is to present Hansen's concepts as a also place to translate, to show how these ideas translate into practice, and yes, it can be seen and then you can experience this utopia in this micro scale, at least.